Hello and welcome to Channel 51 News for Thursday, August the 14th. And there is, of course, a whole lot going on. We'll get into the headlines in just a minute. Now, we've just learned that Anna Paulina Luna has told Joe Rogan that she has seen extraterrestrial craft. We'll get onto that story a little bit later. But we're going to deal with, first up today, the story of the August 31 rally scheduled for Australia, the controversy that has gone on there. Now, Joel Jammal has produced a video explaining how the August 31 rally for Australia came about by a viral video and happenstance, and how a group of white nationalists found the opportunity to land on their laps, but with reputational damage the movement can ill afford. Joel makes comparisons to the Canberra rally and points out the differences and to an alternative.
All right, let's talk about the rally on the 31st of August. Who's organising it? Why is Abby Chatfield attacking it? Why is the mainstream media promoting it? Who is actually going to be speaking at the event? In order to answer these questions, you need to understand how this whole thing kicked off. It basically kicked off from this TikTok account from South Australia. A young bloke who we've had a chat to, 18 years old. He saw the Harbour Bridge protest. He didn't like it. He's basically very discontent with the nature of where Australia's at. Australia's broken. Red tape's out of control. Net zero's out of control. Farmers are being destroyed. Digital IDs, gone crazy. We've got runaway inflation on the horizon. Australia, nothing works anymore in this country, and he's nostalgic for what Australia used to be. The problem is that thing went viral with 1.5 million views on TikTok, and then the next post he did was he just threw a date out there, the 31st of August. He was the first one to do it. He had no planning in mind as to who's going to organize the rally in every state. His heart was in the right place, but there was no follow-through. He was contacted by some people in these white nationalist circles that basically I've got on record inciting violence on Twitter Spaces, people who are basically in bed with the National Socialist Network. And when he realized that these people, he just handed the event to them, he's basically deleted the post on his TikTok and he's trying to lay low. And so now we've got this really disappointing situation where people haven't quite worked out yet who's organizing this rally because of the lack of transparency. And this is simply not how we achieved the Canberra protests, where we mobilized 250,000 people to Canberra. We had clear outcomes. We had a clear face to the protest, and we very clearly we achieved the outcomes that we wanted. We had 33 successful outcomes that came out after the Canberra protests. Now, that's not what's going on with this. We don't have that level of transparency. And a lot of people are asking me about, is this a false flag? What's going on? Guys, it's just simply mismanagement. That's what's happened. And it's unfortunate, but I'm really pleased to say that I've spoken to some credible protest organizers, people like Tricky and others from the major cities, and they are organizing a rally for mid-September, a couple of weeks after this one, that's properly done. It's got proper messaging. It's got credible people that are actually going to be speaking at the rally. I'm going to be getting behind that one, not this one, because of the lack of information on this. But I'll leave that to you guys. This is what I found. I leave this information in your hands to do what you will. God bless you all. It's an unfortunate situation, but this is just what I found.
Really interesting, isn't it, Joel Jammal, putting some perspective, much needed in terms of people also reaching out to myself and asking, is this false flag? Is it real? Do we get involved or do we not? Once there is division, of course, it just doesn't work. Meantime, the new rally will be looking for a march for all Australians, and that will apply to a social media ban bill, digital ID, the WHO pandemic treaty, mass immigration, protecting the farmers, and of course the housing crisis. That makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? Meanwhile, I spoke to on the 51st State, which will air this evening, Carmine Sabia. He is from Explain America with over 500,000 subscribers. And I put it to him, is Australia a free country? His response, well, I think he nailed it. Take a look.
Well, if you're going to take over a culture, what's the first thing you need to do? You need to emasculate the men, right? You need to move them away from God and make them reliant on the state, make them see the state as God. Mm-hmm. And last step, and this is the most important, my Australian friends know this, you have to disarm them. Because a population that has weapons is very hard to control. I have a lot of Australian friends, some of whom hate what's going on in Australia, some of whom think it's the greatest. Now, I would never go back to the time when there was guns. And I said, and I've said this to Australia, I said it to you before, Jason. I said, let me ask you a question. Do you think you have freedom? Do you think you're in a free country? Of course I'm in a free country. There's no dictators here. We're in a free, we have elections. My answer to that is it's a very simple litmus test for me if you're in a free country. Can you be arrested for saying certain words? And usually the knee-jerk reaction, well, no, you could say whatever. Well, let me ask you a question. If you were on a train and there was a group of black people walked on and you said, you bunch of N-words, could you be arrested? Well, that's a horrible thing to say. Why would I say that? You should be arrested. I said, no. Could you be arrested for saying that? I'm not saying you should say it. It's a horrible thing. I agree with you. Could you be arrested? Well, yeah, you could be arrested because you don't have freedom. If you can't say what you want, because let me tell you something, Jason, it is a short walk from you can't say the N-word to you can't criticize your government. It is a short walk, and people don't realize that. That's why freedom of speech comes first in the Constitution. All speech. Now, if you're threatening somebody, different story. That's a different story. Now you've taken it to an extreme. Now you're committing a criminal act. I think nobody should say the N-word. I think nobody should say, words to gay people that are harmful or hurtful. I don't think people should hurt people with their words. I think it's horrible. But what I really don't think is I don't think a group of elite people should be the ones to dictate, these are the words we decree that you cannot say. By the way, if you want to make fun of white Christian people, knock yourself nuts. You can do that all day. There's no penalty for that. It's just every other group that you can't say anything about. So, no, I would tell you that Australia is not a free country. I would tell you that England, the UK is not free. Canada is not free. Any place you can be arrested and prosecuted for saying words on the internet. And you got to think before you type something, can I get arrested for this? If you have to think that before you type on the internet, you are not in a free country.
Meanwhile, back in Australia, opposition leader Sussan Ley has taken aim at Jim Chalmers and the economic summit scheduled for next week. Sussan has said that she's criticised the leak of Treasury advice before the Productivity Roundtable. She sharply criticised the Labor government after the ABC received a leaked document from Treasury that includes a number of recommended outcomes for the Productivity Roundtable, which isn't scheduled to take place until next week. And her quote was, "It's all been lined up. Statements are ready to go out. People are going there in good faith and they want to see outcomes. They want to see us growing the economic pie and they want to see Australians pay less tax and be rewarded for their effort. And I fear that none of those things are actually on the agenda at this Productivity Roundtable. Meanwhile, there's a growing list of broken promises. Your energy bills would come down. In fact, they're going up. But tax is really the main thing on this Productivity Roundtable. And the point being that it's not about cutting taxes like we're seeing in the United States, where they're even moving to eradicate income taxes up to $150,000 US per annum off the back of the tariffs. Well, here in Australia, Treasury has told the government that they must increase taxes and cut spending in order to make ends meet. And we've already heard about the ideas of increasing the GST, cutting negative gearing, halving the capital gains thresholds, etc., the concessions, I should say. And so now Sussan Ley calls them out completely and saying that this thing has already been planned. Meanwhile, if you own an electric vehicle, watch out because the government, they could be coming for you too. This is a report from News and their Motoring editor.
Drivers pay a special tax? Maybe. And it looks like the government is moving in that direction. Let's go back a step. If you have a petrol car, then you pay tax on every litre of fuel that helps pay for road maintenance and construction. More than 50 cents in every litre, in fact. So if you put $50 a week in the tank, a good chunk of that helps pay for the wear and tear that your car causes on the road. Of course, smaller cars like a Suzuki Swift do less damage to the road than big cars like a Ford Raptor. So they pay less by using less fuel. That makes sense. But electric cars, well, they don't use any fuel, so they don't pay a fuel excise to help pay for maintaining roads. Now that wasn't a problem when there were only a handful of drivers with EVs. But as the number of electric cars in Australia continues to grow, governments at every level want EV owners to pay their share. Victoria implemented a plan to do just that and started charging owners of electric and plug-in hybrid cars a per kilometre fee for using the roads a couple of years ago. EV owners took them to court and won. That was abolished. Now the federal government is looking into it. Treasurer Jim Chalmers hasn't announced exactly what a road user charge will look like. Will it apply only to EVs? What about hybrids? Could it be rolled out to all vehicles instead of a fuel excise? We don't know how this will work, but we do know that there will be flow-on effects. People who do big miles, folks in the country or the outer suburbs of big cities will be hit hardest. Then there are more questions. Will people pay a premium for electric cars only to be smashed with extra taxes? Will EVs become cheaper to buy if demand falls? Will fledgling brands drop out of Australia if they can't make the numbers stack up? We don't know. But we do know that the road ahead is going to be bumpy.
So the government, well, they encourage you to do it. They bring you in. They give you the incentives. And then when everything is on a pathway, they shift gear, change trajectory, and then tell you that you've got to fork out some more money to drive your electric vehicle on the road. Now, with all due respect, those of us who drive petrol or diesel-powered cars, well, we know that we're paying an excise duty all along. So when you think that you're going to take a pathway for the environment, how long will it be before you still have to pay for the usage, not the environment that's meant to be up there, but down underneath the rubber on the road? And that is what you're getting hit up for. So is it enough to pay a tax on your registration, or do you have to pay another road user charge that has been factored in to the fuel costs? Certainly interesting, and you can bet Jim Chalmers he's going to be laying it out in the Productivity Summit coming up next week, and we'll be able to report back on that for you. Meantime, also appearing on the 51st State yesterday, retired or former Navy clearance diver John Armfield was on the show, and we were discussing a number of things concerning his brother's suicide, his Royal Commission, where he gave evidence at the Royal Commission over veteran suicides, and also how he perceived things in relation to what we saw with previous 60 Minutes stories and sexual assault within the Defence Forces themselves, and why it was that the Defence played a certain line. And I asked him why he thought that was the case. Let's take a listen now to John Armfield. Are these high-ranking officers there to protect the institution? Are they there to cover up for the real shame that's actually happened?
Jason, the ADF's primary concern is risk to reputation. It's got nothing to do with the compensation, because people will be compensated in some mean when they go out through Department of Veterans Affairs, if they've got the injuries and so forth. So they'll compensate you for the injury, but they won't. When I speak to people, I say, what would you want? What do you want? They go, I want justice. I don't want compensation. And I think it doesn't matter if it's in a military or civilian context. People are getting beat down by the system, Jason, and I've got clear evidence. There's a lot of people who got clear evidence of what the organization's doing, and it is by protecting the perpetrator, they protect the organization. I also don't understand that, Jason, because I sort of believe, the people that I allege wronged me, if you held them to account, you fix the reputation. The young lady who's come forward in the media and on LinkedIn and 60 Minutes spoke about, who was allegedly raped in uniform. If you show people that you support the good Australians that want to fight for this country, you actually fix the reputation of the organization. You increase recruiting. You therefore increase capability, right? But what they did to me, it destroys morale internally. Well, we've just hundreds of people reached out. They're destroying the morale, and they then lose all capability, because most of the people that I've served with now have left. And I speak to the Army and the Air Force. The impact that those ladies that spoke on 60 Minutes, the impact that'll have on female recruiting, and it should have on female recruiting, because when General Natasha Fox was asked, the only female at that rank in the ADF and head of personnel, was asked, are women safe? And she said, we will support them when they come forward. And then the journalist asked her a second time, but are women safe? And she goes, we will support them. That's not what we want to hear.
No.
Anyone, male or female, should be safe in the workplace. And imagine if that was Combank or BHP or Rio Tinto or Flight Centre was saying that.
Extraordinary stories there. John Armfield fighting very hard. He also ran for the People First Party with former Senator Gerard Rennick in the 2025 election. Well, thanks everyone for supporting at channel51.com.au. You can become a subscriber either free or paid and get access to exclusive content on top of this news show. And you'll see shows there like the one you saw there with the 51st state. You can catch them all on channel51.com.au and be a supporter of independent media. Now, what we're going to do now is head over to Europe, where Vladimir Zelensky has met with Friedrich Merz at a summit ahead of the Putin Trump summit in Alaska. This report comes out of Sky News with a statement from Downing Street.
I want to bring you a statement that's come to us from Downing Street, a spokesperson there following these summits. It says the Prime Minister joined a call with the leaders of the United States, Ukraine, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, of course, which borders Ukraine, Finland, NATO and the European Union this afternoon. All leaders agreed this week marks an important moment for the future of Ukraine. They thanked President Trump for his efforts in bringing Putin to the table in pursuit of a ceasefire to end the ongoing bloodshed. The Prime Minister was clear, they say, that our support for Ukraine is unwavering. International borders must not be changed by force, and Ukraine must have robust and credible security guarantees to defend its territorial integrity as part of any deal. Europe stands ready to support this and will continue to work alongside President Trump and President Zelensky for a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. It goes on. They added that they look forward to speaking again following the meeting in Alaska on Friday. So there's a statement from Downing Street. Prime Minister Keir Starmer is currently chairing a coalition of the willing summit now after that summit of European leaders and then a summit with President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance.
So Trump has addressed the people at the Kennedy Center and explained that there will be consequences if they can't come up with a deal with him and Putin. Meanwhile, he pushed focus back to Russiagate in relation to subject pushing here on the summit.
I would have had a good conversation with Vladimir. I knew him very well. I got along with him great, actually. We had I had to go through the Russia hoax. And it was actually, it was a strain on the relationship. I actually told him, I said, you know, they got this phony investigation going on, Russia, totally phony, created by Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff and Hillary Clinton and the whole group of them. And it made it very dangerous for our country because I was unable to really deal with Russia the way we should have been. I'm looking at Pam because I hope something's going to be done about it. These people put our country at great danger. And Adam Schiff, it was all made up. It was a hoax. The Mueller report came out. They all hated me. They had 18 Trump haters. And they said I did nothing wrong. They couldn't believe, they couldn't find anything. After years of investigation, it was all a hoax. It was a hoax created by the Democrats, but in particular Schiff and Crooked Hillary, the whole group. And now we've learned all the stuff that's come out over the last 2 months is incredible through intelligence. And hopefully something's going to happen with it. These are people that put our country in danger, in real danger. I want to thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Meanwhile, reporter Catherine Herridge came out and looked deeper into the 302s released by the FBI. And this particular document, we'll zoom in on it, she refers to one declassified FBI record you should not miss. The October 2017 FBI report alleges leaking by Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee was not a one-time thing. There was a systematic process. Notes would be run up to the ranking member, Adam Schiff, after which a decision was made as to who would leak the information. So who did leak the information? Looking in closer, we'll zoom in here. Noted Swalwell, Eric Swalwell, has been the source of a lot of leaked information and had to be counselled to be more careful. Now, the account was given an FBI special agent based on their conversation with a GOP House Intelligence Committee staffer. The 266 pages declassified via FBI Director Kash Patel contain multiple sources and protected disclosures about alleged leaking from 2017 to 2013. And according to the FBI report known as a 302, noted that Swalwell had been the source of the leaked information, and Herridge reached out to Swalwell's office. No response. And on X, he claimed that October 27 whistleblower made it all up. Meanwhile, Adam Schiff has reportedly called the records a smear, as well as absolutely and categorically false. Well, of course you would when you're in the frame for some terrible crimes committed against your president and therefore your country. Well, that is going to be the next subject if he is protected by the auto pen pardon. Here is John Solomon explaining that to Megyn Kelly.
President Biden pardoned Adam Schiff at the end of his term. But unlike the one he gave to Hunter, it was a limited pardon.
It was.
And it only spoke to J6 and his work on the January 6th Select Committee. So it would not immunize him from any of the claims you and I are discussing right now, right?
That's correct. At least according to the legal experts I've talked to, he's only immunized for what he did related from January 6 forward of 2021. So these things occurred in 17 and 18. You've got the mortgage issue, which is also based on our reporting, a story we broke last October on the counting two houses as his primary residence to get better mortgage deals. Those would fall outside of the pardon, according to the legal experts who've looked at it. And I suspect if those get to the case of criminality at some point, that there may be some legal challenges trying to test that pardon's longevity or breadth. And I think that is, one of the many fights that might be ahead if the Justice Department does something here.
Now, there is a lot of activity around DC, given that President Trump has brought in the National Guard, and there's been a lot of activity where you have seen police cars, etc., hundreds of cars, in fact, in various different areas. So people scratching their heads, wondering what is really going on. So Trump has been questioned about the federalizing of the police force in DC, given that there is a limitation to 30 days. This was his response.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Your federalization of the police has a 30-day limit unless Congress acts to extend it. Are you talking to Congress about extending it, or do you believe 30 days is sufficient?
Well, if it's a national emergency, we can do it without Congress, but we expect to be to Congress before Congress very quickly. And again, we think the Democrats will not do anything to stop crime, but we think the Republicans will do it almost unanimously. So we're going to need a crime bill that we're going to be putting in, and it's going to pertain initially to D.C. We're going to use it as a very positive example, and we're going to be asking for extensions on that, long-term extensions, because you can't have 30 days. 30 days that's by the time you do it. We're going to have this in good shape, and don't forget, in the border.
Complicated, isn't it? So you're going to try and change the way that you're going to police in DC, and that becomes the start. So then you bring in Tom Homan and you bring in ICE, and you talk about who should be there, who shouldn't be there, and this being the Trump plan all along. Let's hear now from Tom Homan and his reaction to DC being a sanctuary city.
I think D.C. under federal control is not going to be a sanctuary city. We're working with the police hand in hand. When we encounter a criminal illegal alien, they're going to be turned over to ICE. And that's the way it should be. I mean, I'm not saying every illegal alien in D.C. is a criminal, but many are. So these are people we're going to focus on. Illegal alien criminal safety threat in D.C. is not going to be protected. There's no sanctuary for these people in the city of D.C.
Wow. So there you have it. Now, Eric Trump has spoken about the first 6 months of his father's term in office and how the turnaround has been almost 180 degrees.
We have the Senate. We have the House. We have a 6-3 majority in the Supreme Court. My father has a cabinet that's unparalleled. And what they're doing every single day, I mean, he's making America proud. He's making transformational change to this country, and this is exactly what we need. Look at our economy right now. Look at the jobs force. Look at the tariffs. Look at how much money's coming back. Look at inflation. I mean, our markets, in the last 6 months, they have done a 180. I mean, we were going into a really, really deep place. My father has single-handedly saved this country. Now you watch what he's doing in Washington, D.C. It's a beautiful thing. He's cleaning up the streets. He's getting away with the homelessness. He's doing a great job.
So that's one side of it. But if you are Brandon Johnson, Chicago mayor, you'll have a completely different perspective. Take a look.
Okay, fine. Since you are begging, I do believe that Donald Trump is intimidated. I think you're begging.
No interruption.
So let me just answer that. I do appreciate you begging. So I would just say it like this, that the president has always been intimidated by the intellectual prowess of black men. And so, of course, he would speak in those petite and puerile terms because...
Of course, he's intimidated by black men, intelligent black men, of course. Meanwhile, Billboard Chris has launched a charity, a not-for-profit, and it is to combat child medical transitioning. After years of child protection activism and more than 30 assaults, Chris Elston takes his fight against child gender ideology to the next level with the launch of the We Speak Truth Foundation. The foundation's goals are simple but urgent: to educate politicians and the public on the irreversible harms of child transition, push for legislative bans on the practice, defend free speech and parental rights, and equip everyday citizens with the tools to speak the truth, one conversation at a time. Donations are tax deductible to Americans, but anyone in the world can contribute at WeSpeakTruth.com. And the purpose is to stop the greatest child abuse scandal in the history of modern medicine. More power to you, Billboard Chris, and more understanding, of course. The key is, how does any child know this whole situation without an adult influencing them in the first place? And so it is that there is at least a resistance, a debate, a conversation, and a program with structure to educate, as Chris is going to do there. And we have spoken to Chris recently on the former incarnation of this show, which you can check out as well. Meantime, Anna Paulina Luna, Congresswoman, has spoken to Joe Rogan about the biggest mystery of all time. Let's take a look.
You said that you've seen evidence. Like, what kind of evidence have you seen?
I have seen photos. I have seen...
what have you seen photos of?
So I was in a skiff, and I can't discuss all that was in a skiff, but what I can tell you is based on the photos that I've seen, I'm very confident that there's things out there that have not been created by mankind.
It seems crazy that people have access to information that shows that there's something outside of us that is more intelligent, at least more capable than we are, and they hide it from everybody else.
The secret of all time. We are inching towards disclosure. Some may think it's real, some may think it's a put on, but there is disclosure. And I'll tell you one thing, there has to be a race, because there are two sides in this political competition that's going on for global domination, if you will. And Anna Paulina Luna, she represents the Trump faction, and then you've got the globalists or the Schiff faction, and you had Chuck Schumer talking about the rush to disclose. So it has to remain credible. That's the point here. They want it to be credible, whichever way they're going to tell this final story, or will it be the beginning rather than the end, and a ploy to either hold power or to educate the population. That's the big catch there. Which way will it go? We'll just keep reporting as we see it. Meantime, we saw from Joel Jammal, this is the march that he's talking about in September, a march for all Australians, social media ban bill, digital ID, WHO pandemic treaty, mass immigration, protect the farmers and the housing crisis. And we look to that one as the option, the best way to move forward at this point for a constructive rally where people will come together and stand up to the government of the day, the globalists, if you will, and their plans for tyranny, global control, and taking away our liberties. Let's see you all on the next show. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe.